Good morning, everybody. This is Greg Shields, Greg Shields Outdoors. This is a continuation of my series, The Blue Side of Prison. It's a series about how to survive prison as an officer in the prison system. This might be the most important episode of all. This is going to deal with inmate compassion and dealing with men that have lost their freedom. So you got to understand that when these men get to prison, their freedom has been taken away, and so every decision, every action they make, everything they say is going to be driven by how they're coping with losing their freedom. I mean, some of these guys are used to, if say they're involved in the drug trade, they're used to setting their own hours, being on the corners, being in whatever locale they sold their product at, and they decided who they dealt with, they decided what they wore, they decided what time they went to work, what time they stopped. And all that's gone. And even something as little as excessive traffic tickets that somebody gets a year in prison. Well, they've lost their home, their schedule, their job, could lose their family. So everything that they do from that point forward is going to be driven by how they cope with losing their freedom. And you, as a federal or a state correctional officer, that's what you're facing on everything you're trying to direct them to. One of the main ways the prison system deals with helping the inmates cope with that is by having jobs in the prison systems. They try to make it where nobody does not have an assigned job. That's the main thing that they do. So when they come into the prison system, they're classified what jobs they can work at, and we get them a job, whether it's the kitchen, dorm orderly, grounds maintenance crew, or if they really want to get away from the prison, they apply for and get assigned to an outside detail, which is what I did for a long time, taking the prisoners out of the prison. So even though they're still under your weapons and under your control, they're out of that prison from 7 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. So they get to see things. They get the air smells different. The food is better. It's hard work, but that's one of the ways that the prison systems cope with the idle minds that the prisoners will have. And the officers can deal with that in a couple of ways. First of all, you don't have to deal with it at all. You can just turn a blind eye to it. Whatever they got sent to prison for, that's what they got to do. So you just basically balk at trying to help them deal with it. Just do your basic minimum duties and go about your business. And you can do that. People do that. But the ones that do that, officer-wise, they rarely make it a career doing that, because too many variables come into play if you're not available for help. I mean, I understand that you've got policies and stuff you have to enforce, but you can also help an inmate you see struggling with coping with being locked up, losing his freedom. And I used to do that in a number of different ways. And when I was a dorm officer, if I saw somebody you see somebody that's depressed, you can recognize it. They sit by themselves, they never come out of their cell. They might only go to 1 or 2 meals a week, and they just sit alone, or they refuse employment, refuse a prison job. And the ramifications of refusing to take a prison job are you get sent to the special housing unit for disciplinary, and they'll give you 14 days isolation, and they'll continue to do that until you get it through your head that you have to have some type of job, because they're going to run the prison how they run it. And the best thing to do is, as an inmate, is to find out what jobs are out there, and then try to get one. If you got to work anyway, try to get a job that suits what you want to do. And I used to help inmates with that all the time. I mean, they may take an initial assignment of the kitchen or a dorm orderly, and if I still saw them depressed with that job, just during your rounds, walk in there and say something to them about it. Say, well, is there any other job you'd like to get? Would you like to be out of the building more? Would you want to be in the kitchen, where even though the food's not fantastic, but as a kitchen worker, you get to eat till you're full. You don't get just the sample tray and that's it. You eat till you're full every single meal. And a lot of guys that wanted to do heavy workouts, do crunches and push-ups and weights when we used to have them. They wanted to get big. They would volunteer for kitchen jobs because they could get a lot of extra protein, so they could get bulked up. And you'd see a lot of the big bodybuilder type guys would apply for the kitchen jobs because they wanted the extra chow. And that's fine. Put them in there. As long as they did the work, it was good to go. On the grounds maintenance crew, you see a guy that's an old country boy, and he's used to sitting on the riverbanks fishing and riding up and down the river in a boat and going deer hunting and stuff like that. And maybe he just needs to be outside on a piece of lawn equipment. We had several riding lawnmowers and push mowers, and Monday through Friday they worked on the grounds maintenance. And if I saw a guy that just needed to be out there free, I'd recommend that he go to that job, and I'd help him get that job. When I became a detail officer, a lot of times, like when we come inside to turn our weapons in, go inside, turn our keys and stuff in until the next day, an inmate that I hadn't seen before would come up to me and, Officer Shields, I'd like to put in to be on your outside detail. And I'd tell them to get a job change. I'd ask where they work at now, because if they were assigned to a critical job inside, it was hard to get them off of that. You about couldn't. I could pull them off because I had been there so long. I had a little bit of pull with who I needed to have it with to get people job changes. But if they wanted to come to outside detail, I'd find out where they worked and tell them to fill out a job change request and bring it to me specifically. Don't just turn it into counseling, bring it to me. And then I would check them out a little bit, and I would sign their request, and I would take it to their counselor. And I could usually get it approved. When you get 10, 15, 20 years in the system, a tiny bit of clout comes with that, and I can get somebody put on my detail if I wanted them on there. But I'd tell them up front that you got to pull your weight. It's hard work, and we're going to get sweaty. We're going to walk a bunch of miles picking up paper. We'd average 35 to 40 miles a week picking up litter during the summers, because you have to stay ahead of the lawnmowers. Different counties you work in would have lawnmowers, tractors that go cut right away. Well, you got to stay ahead of them. They give you the schedule of where they're going to cut, and you would pick those roads up so they wouldn't be shredding litter everywhere, and you had to stay ahead of them. So it was a constant march. I mean, I don't think I weighed but about 200 pounds when I had that job, because hell, I walked 40 miles a week in full uniform with a gun belt on, a pistol, and carrying a 10-pound shotgun. So I stayed in shape head to. Matter of fact, it was funny. The shotgun barrel and receiver would get so hot in the summers in Georgia that you couldn't touch the metal. I'd have to hold on to the wood only and just set it on my shoulder, because the metal was so hot you couldn't touch it. It's crazy, but that's the way it is out here. It's 105 a day with 100% humidity in the south, and that's just the way it is. But just understand that when you see a discipline problem, a guy that's really bucking the system, there's a reason. It's just not because he's an asshole. Some of them are. Some officers are assholes, but it wasn't really why he was that way. It was because he was having trouble coping with losing his freedom. So I would try to help them explore a way to find a way out of that. Sign up for school, a GED, college classes. Sign up for the education program to hobby craft. Like we had upholstery shops, we had wood shops, metal craft. We just had all kinds of stuff they could get into, and I would help them find out where they could get to help their time go better, and actually learn a trade if they wanted to use it. But that's just one of the big things. A lot of times, especially, I'm gonna tell you something. This was unique. I used to see this all the time. The buildings in the prison system had no air conditioning. They didn't have air, so it was hot in there. But every time we'd have a big rain shower come through in the south, the people be in there watching TV or working on letters or on the phone or whatever. But I would walk by. I'd make a range walk around the entire range around the cells, and every now and then you'd see guys just sitting in their chair. Each cell had little desks, 2 chairs, 2 bunks. Well, you'd see an inmate in there. He'd just be sitting at the window watching the rain come off the building, watching the water cascade off his window, which opens straight out. And those guys right there, you could just tell that they were missing their life, they were missing freedom. And I'd make it a point always to walk in there. I'd look on the register, see who they were. I'd walk in there for, just say their name was Smith. I'd go in there and say, Mr. Smith, everything going okay for you? And is there anything you need that the staff here can help you with? A job change? Is anything you need? And sometimes they just tell me a story. They tell me about what they used to do, how they used to be, what they did when they were free, what they used to do with their kids, and I don't know. 10 minutes of my day to go in there and talk to them about if they needed anything made all the difference in the world, and you could just see their whole attitude change. And I made it a point to do stuff like that. Another area that's tough to work at, and it's tough to see the inmates, is visitation. And it's big visitation. They have visits usually on the weekends, and their people would drive a long way to see them, and that made the inmates happy. So you try to run a smooth visitation process. That means you do not harass the prisoners. You definitely don't harass their people. You have to have a good attitude. The officers with bad attitudes never survive the job, ever. I never saw a single officer in the federal system or the state system that survived the job with a bad attitude. It's not possible. If you've got a bad attitude, you're going to get hurt or you're going to get fired, one of the two, because everywhere you go, you're going to cause problems. And eventually, the sergeants and lieutenants are going to get tired of dealing with it, and you're going to be out. And that's just the way it is. But it is still rare to make a retirement in this job. When I look back on it, some of the stuff that I had to go through, it's tough. But I never can. Once I got about 10 years in, quitting and changing jobs became a thing of the past. I never even considered it. I was going to take it to the hilt no matter what. But prior to that, years 1 through 5, 1 through 7, yeah, I looked around for other jobs, other state jobs and stuff like that, but I just never did change. And I found a place in the system I could work, the outside detail job, and I did that for 17 years, and that was fantastic for me because I like being on the road free, instead of just always locked up in the dorms. And they do too. So that's how you deal with that. Some of the ways that the inmates would pass time where they could cope with it. Some of them would read, some would watch sports, some would be on the phones the best they could, and others would volunteer for extra stuff. Like say they were assigned as a dorm orderly, but something came up extra, like we were going to paint the bunks. We did that maybe once every 2 or 3 years, and we'd go around and ask for volunteers for the paint detail, which means they would do that after their hours. Say they work at the kitchen, they get off at noon. Well, they'd paint from 2 to 5 or 2 to 3 or whatever, just a little bit of painting, and they get extra incentives for that. They get extra time outside, extra food because we provided extra meal if they did extra work. And, I don't know, just the little things to where they felt like they made a difference, and just those types of things. If they feel like they can make a difference, even though they've lost their freedom, they're in for a decent time in there till they get out, and you're in for a decent time managing them till they get out. But I'm gonna wrap it up with that. My next episode, this was episode 6. My next episode, episode 7, I'm gonna try to deal with some of the funny things that I saw. It's not always doom and gloom in there. There was some decent times, some good times that me and the inmates laughed, and stuff went on that was kind of funny, and I'm gonna deal with some of that because the inmates, they're just men, folks. They're just men that got into a situation and their freedom's taken away for a little bit of time. They're not scum. They're men just like you, and so that's what I'm gonna deal with on my next episode. Till then, y'all have a great day. I appreciate you liking and subscribing. God bless you all. Take care.